told my mom first alone, cried for probably 10 minutes straight. And then we all went into the basement and we told my brother and my dad. And my father cried, and it was, I think, the first time I'd actually seen him cry. I expected, based on this whole cultural fabric, that my family would, one, not believe me, two, get angry that, you know, I wasn't a virgin anymore, or three, some combination of these things. I don't know. It never crossed my mind that they would feel hurt or feel sad or feel angry at the situation. I just sort of dehumanized them in my head and made them out to be the enemy. The reaction I did get from them really surprised me, and it just kind of made me sad that I could have done this 6 years earlier, and you know, our relationship could have been so different.
My mother is actually the one who spoke to my friend's parents. Our families are very intertwined, very close. This act was going to affect all of us. I really did not expect them to react the way they did. I'm extremely grateful, but it did come as a huge surprise. My friend's father confronted his brother, who was my abuser. He immediately got defensive and denied it. He actually claimed that, you know, there must have been some other, you know, uncle who looked like him that I confused them with. And I mean, I've never for a second doubted that it was him. He even went as far as to swear on the Quran that he didn't do it. My friend's father is very religious, and I was very nervous that that might sway my friend's father. I wasn't sure that he believed me after that, but amazingly he did. Even so, there were certain people in the extended family who, after hearing him deny it, were not sure anymore. And these are all people that I grew up with, who I knew very, very well. We may have people in our families who have been abusers, and it's really, that's a tough pill to swallow, but it's the reality. Until we start calling these people out on what they did and shaming them and making them realize that they cannot get away with this, nothing's going to change.
I felt a lot of comfort and at home, you know, in this spiritual community, in this cultural community, and I sort of stepped away from it for a while. I created this, you know, illusion in my head that I was always an outsider because this happened to me. The latter part of college is when I started articulating this more to other friends and being more comfortable talking about it with myself. I kind of started regaining that sense of community again. I don't define myself anymore by this. You know, it's an integral part of me. It's never going to go away. But at the same time, it's not, I shouldn't think that someone that I want to get close to is gonna always see me as a victim, and just as the same way I shouldn't see them as someone who is gonna hurt me. And I think even though this happened, I'm still just as deserving of friendship, of love, of anything as anyone else.
I am a forensic social worker, currently working at New York Asian Women's Center. I'm one of the counselor advocates. The population I work with primarily speaks Bangla, Hindi, Urdu. They're victims of human trafficking, domestic violence, primarily, and sexual assault. I'm working directly with the community that I always wanted to stay connected with. Whatever it is that they need, I help them with. It's about survivorship and what they see themselves as moving forward from their own personal trauma. A part of healing and processing my own trauma is working with other folks that are dealing with the same thing and don't necessarily have the voice. That, for me, makes me want to come to work every day.
I was a bit reserved and a little bit closed off and maybe sometimes even defensive with people. I assumed that meant that I wasn't really meant to do a job that involved services to people. And then through this whole process, I realized that's actually exactly what I want to do. So now I'm at SAYA, South Asian Youth Action. It's a nonprofit in Queens. One of the reasons I love working with high school youth is because when I think back to that time in my life, I think about how much I could have used a mentor and somebody I could come to with all my problems. I didn't really have that. Some have even come to me with similar life experiences and have never talked about it before. So I try to be that person for the youth here.
I love you.
In Islam, you have a concept that's called Fardul Ain, your individual obligation, your prayer, your fasting, your giving of charity, your performance of pilgrimage to Mecca at least once in your life. But we also have a concept that's called Fard Kifaya, communal obligation. And the idea that most Muslim communities are channeling their money into building mosque upon mosque or Islamic schools, but they're not putting their resources into counselors or rape crisis therapists, I would say is a failure to fulfill a communal responsibility that we need to. There's an absence of resources, there's an absence of services.
Go and build new services. Everything does not have to function through the masjid. It doesn't.
I'm sure, rape and sexual assault happened back in the time of the Prophet. And, there are hadiths that say, like, this was wrong.
The Prophet not only espoused a rhetoric that was about treating people well, but when he saw injustice, abuses taking place in front of him, he spoke out against it, he compelled others to speak out against it, and he acted upon it.
There's a whole slew of people, unfortunately, that have to go through these things, not just in this community alone, all over the world. I think that's the biggest thing, is just understanding that there's so much out there and that you aren't alone.
For a long time, I couldn't feel it.